doing. And it's a conversation that has stirred up a lot of reactions. And we're looking at the bursaries ones. And there are people who feel that they are deserving cases to receive a little bit of support from the government. Doug Kwangu says, oh, the bursary. I'm from the school of thought that some people do need to downgrade, and they can. It's so painful to see that most deserving cases do not qualify, yet the middle class do. Who is the middle class? Who is this category? Well, she says it's about, do you know the MPs, people in the office? Who do you know? How can you access? Not about who is deserving. And I just want to take it down a little bit further, and it's all about looking at yourself. Because sometimes when you look at others, you feel as though they have more money because they live in this neighborhood. We have classified each other based on lifestyles, where our children go to school, what you drive, and things like that. But if you had to have an emergency bill, can you afford it?
Where?
Financial freedom is a dream to many people. In fact, that independence, some people never get to arrive there. And that's why it's very surprising. Many of us will be caught up in situations, especially when you have, to pay a medical bill. And, when you look at how you can afford quality healthcare, that's a good gauge.
It's a good indication,
It's a good gauge to see how well you're doing. To make sure that you can afford your living expenses for the rest of your life without having to be employed or dependent on others. Maybe you're saying you're self-sufficient because you are employed. Maybe you consider yourself rich because of where you live, because of the friends that you have. You have to look at your finances and ask yourself, where am I? And whether for you, financial freedom is the savings that you have. If you were to, have to get into a clinic right now and an emergency may arise, God forbid, would you be able to afford without having people contribute for you? It's up until situations like that you go to realize, wow, I'm not rich.
That's when you realize the reality, you know. And I remember even during around the pandemic, and people were making very bold statements. They're saying, this is a time to be wise. Pay your bills 1 year in advance. I was like, who? Who's going to sit down and say, wow, for 1 year, I'll pay all my rent, I'll pay school fees, I'll pay all these things for 1 year, and just sit. And I realized that's when you come to terms with people are having different perspectives. In this world, we might walk in the same streets, but we see things so differently. Because I was like, and I wouldn't call it tone deaf, because, that person or those analysts, they probably have their way of doing things. But the assumption that the average Kenyan could probably pay 6 months of all their expenses as they just wait for things to chill. That's not as realistic for so many people.
And it's crazy. It's until emergencies arise is when you can answer this question that we're having on our social media. And it's how you would, describe your financial situation. And it doesn't need a major crisis to see which bracket you fall in. You have to self-evaluate and do a really good audit as we start off the year. And it's a good conversation to have. There's financial emergencies where you realize, oh my goodness, I don't even have anywhere to go for this. People like to look at the pandemic as a really good example. A lot of our safety nets were revealed. I don't even know if anything were to happen to me or my children or my family or my parents, where would I go? How do you gauge your financial freedom, and how would you describe your financial situation? There's also people who say, well, I cannot even describe it right now because I define financial freedom and being set and being rich by home ownership. That has changed too. There's people who are, homeowners, but they can't afford day-to-day life. They can't afford day-to-day life. It's like the budget is just not budgeting. It's like you can't afford your life. You can't afford yourself.
You can have a home, let me tell you, because again, some people save for so many years to get a home. But what happens years after you have that home are two very different things. Like even growing up, I know of cases where people who had, they had really nice homes, but they would tell you, by the way, sisi tuna struggle. And some guys would be like, what do you mean you're struggling? Have you seen the look of your house? And because it's an investment, you can't start telling somebody sell that house, because again, the market shifts and it might have more money later if you decide to sell it. So people can be stuck in their homes, beautiful cars, but they're not liquid. There's no liquidity, and that liquidity thing is the one which is a real thing. And even today, if, God forbid, mobile money was to disappear for like a month, would people be liquid? Would people be able to?
No, it's crazy. A lot of us have to look at the quick cash and actual wealth. What do you have? Are you set up in the next 10 months? Can you say that you know how this year is going to go?
Hey.
Are you relying on the security of your job? Are you relying on your spouse? Are you contributing to shared goals? This is a really, really personal audit of how you're doing financially. And this morning, we want to engage you. We're doing it together. We're in there as well, voting. I just want to see if there's anyone like me. If you were to do an evaluation of your finances, how would you describe yourself? Honestly, forget what people say.
Yeah.
You know, people call you chief, boss.
Hey, Bazoo.
Bazoo, you're the guy. You can afford a drink every weekend. You know, your kids look nice because you thrift. But how can you describe yourself? Are you rich? Are you poor? Ama, you're one of those guys, Nico, hapo katikati.
Uko
Nico too. I can do a selfie. I can go to a nice place, take a selfie once a month.
By the whole week. But
let's be honest with ourselves. This is an anonymous vote. Get voting. So far, 52% of you are saying I'm poor. This is the morning fix. This is the kind of show we have. In fact, I've seen Dennis Gitari on the timeline. Looking at the countdown here, we're going to be looking at who gets to win on the music machine. I can also see Jacob Chama saying this show is so addictive, manze.
Shukran, brother.
And Widow Amma is also on the timeline. Maureen says, Monique, in many ways, we're poor, especially women. We look rich, but we are poor. Women. We'll be talking about that in a moment. So we're going to be getting into traffic shortly. But just to remind you, you can vote on today's music